In its simplest terms, biodiversity is the number of different species that call a particular area home. Biodiversity provides us with a number of services that are sometimes called ecological services. They provide us with food, they provide us with building materials, they filter our water and keep water clean, and in many cases, species perform functions that we haven't yet identified, and it's important to preserve these species, not only for the roles they play in supporting human lives, but also because they've evolved here for millions of years, we have the responsibility to make sure they stay here and they don't go extinct on our watch. Hi, my name is Dr. Brian Hickey. I'm a research scientist here at the St. Lawrence River Institute of Environmental Sciences in Cornwall, Ontario, located on the banks of the St. Lawrence River, which you see beside me. At the River Institute, we do research, education, and community outreach with a focus on big river ecosystems. Much of our focus is on the St. Lawrence River itself, one of the big river ecosystems in the world. One of our current initiatives here at the St. Lawrence River Institute is the St. Lawrence River Biodiversity Project. The goal of this project is to better document the species that call the St. Lawrence River home. It's very hard to protect important ecosystems like the St. Lawrence River when you don't yet have a current list of what species are using the river, let alone have information about the ecological roles that those hundreds or thousands of species play. Today, we'll take a guided tour through Cooper Marsh with River Institute staff, and along the way, we'll identify some of the species we encounter.
So if we look out over the marsh right now, do you think we have a lot of biodiversity?
Yes.
Yes? And why? What can you see out here? Lots of plants.
Lots of animals.
Lots of animals. So scientists will go out and they'll document all these species. Why do you think it's important to write all this stuff down?
So people don't walk up to an animal and like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So what are a few things that you would like to document? Like what do you need to write down? Do you want to start with the date? So what's important about the date? If we want to go a whole year in advance, will we be able to go to that exact day and see all the stuff that we recorded last year and see if it's still here at that same time, or if the ecosystem's changing. So we can always keep track of that. So date is really important. So what else would we want to document to make sure that we have everything written down properly?
Area.
Area. So location, can we call it location? All right, so we're gonna write Cooper's Marsh Boardwalk. So we have the date and the location. What else do we need? Do you think we need the species name? So some jewelweed right here. Okay, so the common name is jewelweed. So you also said it could be called touch-me-not. So if I went back and I wrote all these notes, I would call it jewelweed. But maybe Christina would have called it touch-me-not. And we don't know the difference. So we always have to put the Latin name. So not only do we put the common name, but we have to put the Latin name. All right, so we have date, the location, the common name, the Latin name. So sometimes if it was a new species, you'd write a little bit of some notes on it, something that you've never seen before.
Seeds explode.
Seeds explode. Orange flower. What are the leaves like? So are they alternate or opposite? So all those notes we would write it in our field notes. So I have a big book here filled with all these little notes, just like this, of all the species that we find. So we want to record all the biodiversity that we see today. I know what you're saying. I don't know if that's an osprey. Yeah, I can't see.
It's the osprey is straight, and the northern harriers and the turkey vultures have a V when they glide.
Yeah, it was a harrier.
You see the fingers? Like as it's flying, the wings comes into a finger.
A good trick for some plants is remembering that rushes are round, and sedges have
edges.
That's right, so this is a sedge. If you spin it in your finger, it is literally like a prism, like it's triangular. If you roll that in your fingers, you'll feel all the edges. If you took a cattail stem and rolled it in your fingers, it'd be perfectly round. They sometimes have that little tail looking thing.
Frogger tail.
Phragmites, very good. So Phragmites can't survive in where it's too wet, so Phragmites is always at the edge.
Oh, I know one.
And it's invasive.
Sean? No. For the trees.
Yeah, what is that?
That is Sumac.
That's right, that is Sumac.
Wetlands in general contribute to a high biodiversity. Certain wetlands, such as marshes, have a large variety of species that we can find here in Canada. So most marshes are flooded from rivers. If you look really, really far, you can see the river. The other thing you're going to find is a swamp. Unlike a marsh, marsh is dominated by all the plants, so lots of plant species as you look out over here. A swamp, mostly dominated by trees, so if you're in an area that's a little bit wet with trees, you know that you're in a swamp. Another thing would be a bog. So a bog is a really acidic area that's flooded by the rain, and not so much from the groundwater, surface water. So the other one is a fen. A fen is usually from the groundwater, and there's surface water, a little bit of rain. It's not as acidic as a bog would be, so you would find a little bit more plant life in it.
Frog.
That is not a frog. What is it?
Frog.
Toad, that's right, it's an American toad.
It has to be wet.
No, so toads, what makes, the difference between a frog and a toad is that frogs are aquatic and toads are terrestrial. Basically meaning that toads prefer land than water. So they still like moisture, but they don't like being fully dunked in the water like a frog would. So those are pretty neat, eh? You know what kind of mushrooms they are? So they belong to the bracket fungi family. So that means that they grow on trees like a shelf almost. So this is called a cinnabar mushroom. Cinnabar fungi. They're really neat. I love them. What flower is that? Do you have a garden at home? A flower garden at home? So a lot of people have these, they have them called morning glories, but they're called field bindweed. What are these things? Do you guys know what these are called?
Oh, Mom has them at home.
Anyone know? So this one's called the sensitive fern. So there's other ferns, but see how this one is just one leaf? You'll find other ones around here that have more than one. So this one's called a sensitive fern. Yeah, so they're pretty common in this marshy area. So this species of frog that you see here is called a leopard frog. You can tell that this is a leopard frog from its dark spots. So the spots will be on its backs, its legs, and its sides. Usually these dark spots are circled by a lighter color. There's an ant and some kind of beetle all on one little aster. So like feeding off that one little thing, that flower is helping more than one species. Huh, so this yellow plant we see here is called poison parsnip. This is something that we don't want to touch. So you can see that it looks very similar to goldenrod. So everyone know this is goldenrod, this lovely plant, this beautiful yellow plant. So who has allergies? Does anyone have allergies? Yeah, so sometimes people have really bad allergies to goldenrod, but it won't be the same. If you touch poison parsnip, you'll get a rash and it bubbles up and it's not nice to touch. And then look at this purple flower back here. Can you see that?
Purple vetch.
It's purple vetch, you got it. And what about this one?
It's a spiky one.
Yeah, so it's a thistle. Do you know what kind of thistle this is?
No.
It's a Canada thistle. So is this one different from that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's different?
Because this one's bigger and picky.
Picky and pickier, yeah. This is called a bull thistle. So if we look at the bull thistle and the bee, there's a great relationship. The bee provides us with honey, but also provides the thistle with genetic diversity and helps distribute its pollen. Without the bee, the thistle would have a reduced chance of survival. This is just one example where you can see that every species, no matter how small, plays an important role in our ecosystem. See these beautiful, yeah, those berries? It's called nightshade.
Are we allowed to eat it?
No, absolutely not. So this large gray bird you see here up in the tree is called the great blue heron. The primary food for the great blue heron are small fish, but they can also feed on aquatic insects.
Yeah, I see that. It's all
Japanese
over.
beetle.
There's a nice big one there too.
I have a question.
Yep.
Why is the warning door still out?
What's this plant called?
Milkweed.
Milkweed. What's the plant useful for?
For butterflies.
For butterflies, is there a specific for monarch butterflies? So we want to keep more of those around.
What's in this? Milk.
So open it up.
Seeds.
What is this stuff, guys?
Spike ball?
The spike ball. It makes a pop sound. So it's called wild cucumber. This is something you do not eat.
Why? Don't poison you?
Yes. Yes.
How can it poison you when does it?
Its seeds do.
Let's take a closer look at this species we see in the grass. This species is prehistoric looking. It's called a snapping turtle. In Ontario, it is considered a species of special concern.
As we've been walking along, I've been writing all the species we find in this book. So I'm going to let you guys do this next plant. So we got to remember, what was it we have to start with? What was the first thing we have to do in our notes? Yep. So we're going to put the date. So we have the date. What's next? So the where it was taking. So the location. All right. What's next?
Common name?
It's common name. Does anyone know what this species is? Yeah.
Spotted Joe Pyeweed?
Spotted Joe Pyeweed. And how do you know it's Spotted Joe Pyeweed?
Because it's pink.
It's pink. It's got the spots on its stem. The leaves, you can tell they're
Lance-shaped.
lance-shaped, okay. So we double checked in our book that this is Spotted Joe Pyeweed. And what's the next thing we want to do?
It's
Scientific name or its Latin name. So maybe next year I'm going to come here at this time and maybe Spotted Joe Pyeweed isn't in bloom, so there's no flower. So I can write back in my notes saying, oh, something has changed in our ecosystem that has made the Joe Pyeweed bloom later in season than normally.
So just by going on an hour-long walk on one of the boardwalks here at Cooper's Marsh, we found all of these species. We can certainly say this marsh is very healthy and filled with biodiversity.
So that concludes our first episode on biodiversity. I hope it gives you a new appreciation for the importance and diversity of the natural ecosystems here in our own backyard. And I hope you go out and explore biodiversity in your own schoolyard or join us at the St. Lawrence River Institute for one of our many biodiversity related programs.